Hi, welcome to Comic Talk. I'm Joshua.
And I know when that hotline bling, it can only mean one thing.
What is it? Okay, that's Drake. I know
Yes.
that one. Today we're doing a trade review on Jupiter's Legacy. This is Mark Millar and Frank Quietly. This is volume 1. There's 2 volumes, is that right?
No, not yet. So,
Oh, really?
Legacy came out, and then Circle Volume 1 came out, and then Circle Volume 2 just came out, but there's no Legacy Volume 2 yet. So it's like he started here and then went back for Circle, and then I guess is going to finish up
Well, I hope
on
so.
Legacy. Yeah.
Okay, so this is Mark Millar and Frank Quietly. What's this about? Can we put that into a short little thing?
Okay, so we've been talking about Circle for a while, so you can go back and check out some of that. This is future events. Like, these are the real protagonists of this are like the children of the Utopian, who's like the Superman facsimile, whatever. And then there's other people, like his brother is involved, and I don't know how much I can say without giving away too much. But
Yeah, you don't want to go too deep into that at this stage. We'll probably spoiler it at the end.
do it later. But
Yeah.
up front, I will say that if you liked his work on Red Sun Superman, this is definitely for you. This is what he could have done with that if he didn't have to worry about like people with Superman boners, basically.
Yeah. This this follows along in the footsteps of some other stuff that I've liked over the years. I can't believe I haven't read this because this reminds me of, say, Irredeemable. It reminds me of The Authority, Invincible.
Invincible is a big one.
It reminds me of a lot of these stories where the characters all feel like legacy characters. I buy them right away. Like the way they're written, you can really understand the archetype that they're going for, but they don't just feel like a copy. Like Utopian doesn't just feel like Superman without the name. You know, he's a little different. And you get that with all the characters. But at the same time, we get a definite moving of the plot along in a way that we never get. Well, not, I won't say never, but
Rarely.
that you rarely, if ever, get with like DC or Marvel or the big characters. Because obviously, a character that's been around 60 years, you can't. You could, if Marvel and DC didn't have garbage editors, you could make them change and do new things and become different people throughout the course of a story.
But generally, we only get that in like the Elseworld stories, you know, where they can just tell something real quick and not worry about all the continuity bullshit. And
Right.
Yeah, but this is even like I would say beyond that. Like
Yeah.
the liberties that they can take. I mean, they can like kill huge important people.
Right.
You know.
Right. Big, important things can change. And that's really the entire focus of this is what happens when these important people start disagreeing, which we've also seen coming up more and more in Jupiter's Circle. But what happens when important people disagree, and also that's mixed in with this cool plot of their children, which starts out with the children kind of in the background in issue 1, and as each issue comes into focus, or as each issue progresses, the focus slowly shifts more and more to the kids.
Well, let's talk about the artwork a little bit before we spoil the shit out of it.
Let's do it.
So, Quietly, you're probably the bigger Quietly fan, so I will let you.
Sure. I guess Quietly, he's one of those guys that, like a lot of the stuff that you and I tend to like, is either love it or hate it. Like a lot of people dislike him, other people really like him a lot. And I think that's because his style is really pretty simple. It's just a little bit sketchy. His paneling is more along the lines of like storyboard style paneling, where it's more of a cinematic panel to panel. He's not trying to do clever things with his layouts.
Right.
He's just
Pretty by the book.
he's really his work is very focused on giving a cinematic view from panel to panel what's going on.
Really just moments in time, like specific exact moments. Also, I don't think we should really talk down about his detail too much, because there are certain images in here and panels in here where he really wants to show depth, and he really like goes that extra mile, and like he's capable of doing it, you know, and he does it like when it's appropriate.
Right.
but it's not, I guess, by any means part of his like normal modus operandi, so to speak.
Right.
There's also a lot of little things that I liked in this, like later, this isn't really spoiling much, but there's a little kid superhero, and his parents don't know about it, so he's with his dad, and he needs to go like save something, but he's got this ice cream cone, and he hands it to this girl, and then like goes and does his thing and comes back, and like you see her like looking at her hand, like what the fuck, because he gets his ice cream cone back.
Yeah. He's just gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's go ahead.
Spoil the shit out of it.
We're going to spoil it, so if you haven't read it yet, you probably don't want to watch on from here. Just stop, read it, come back to this at another time.
Yeah. By the way, this trade is not, I mean, it was $10 at Barnes & Noble, which is not known for cheap trades at all. Like,
right.
They charge what?
Right, it's one of those super cheap image trades where they
Right.
really are trying to hook you on the series or the idea.
So $10, like, go ahead and get it. I mean,
Yeah,
it's going to be better than the fucking 3 $2.99 books you would have gotten otherwise.
Now, let's spoiler from right here forward.
Cool.
Shut it off or continue at your own risk. So, I'm going to continue with what we were just talking about with the kid, because
Sure.
I think the kid is a direct reference to, like, Superboy, or I think Superboy is probably the most...
See, I caught more of a Superboy vibe from the Utopian Son.
Well...
Because he's just really pissed off about being in the shadow of all of this and, like, doesn't know how
Okay.
to cope. And, like,
Okay,
he has all the
let's-
ability, but it fucks him up, like, in the head that, you know...
What we're doing here is we're talking about the two different Superboys, which is the next thing I was going to get to, is that the other one is more like the new Superboy. I'm talking about like original, like actual Clark Kent Superboy when he was a kid. It felt very much like this all the way down to like being on the school bus.
Yeah, I was about to say
what I
that
mean?
the scene on the bus where they're like, dude, look, we know you're a superhero. Like, there's people in trouble. Like, we're not going to say anything. Just fucking go. You know?
Right,
Yeah.
right. So we do have some things where Millar, I think, is trying to very clearly say this isn't an analogous character,
Right.
you know.
Sure.
And I think him and then Brandon.
Yeah,
Brandon. He's definitely more like the Connor Kent Superboy version.
Mm-hmm.
And really, so what we're looking at here, even with the name Jupiter's Legacy, we're looking at how like the actions of a father will change, you know, the children and how they affect them. And
And there's a lot of like pretty deep shit about that, you know, when somebody's asking him like, is that why you're so hard on your son? Because he's like the one thing you feel that you failed at. And he's like, no, I got my daughter too.
yeah, I fucked them both up. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I really thought it was a clever angle with like having his uncle like kind of use him to gain power and stuff like that. And like everything the Utopian said, like up to that point was true. He's like, no, dude, he's just playing you, you know? And like the first thing after he dies, he's like, what do you want to do now? He's like, I don't know. What do you think we should do?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's almost like maybe like Luthor that starts out. It's, I can't even make that comparison, but it's...
I do see what you mean, though. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had some of the same ideas. One of the interesting things that I really liked when I was reading it is that they set you up to agree with Brandon's uncle, whose name escapes me. They are making some good points, and they do make the Utopian, although on the surface, seem really great, and like he has the best intention. Like you,
Right, but he is a dick.
you do see why it would be a problem, you know.
And it only makes it worse that he was like, it turned out that he was right about everything.
Right.
So, fuck you, man.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. And he was right. And of course he would be right. But the natural instinct of a bunch of people dealing with a guy being that way for 60 years to them is to rebel against it.
Right.
Which is interesting because it's kind of the opposite of what we get in, say, Irredeemable, where in Irredeemable, he cracks under the weight and the rest of them have to deal with it, but you get the same result. But this is a more nuanced approach of that. And Irredeemable is great. It's Mark Waid.
Yeah.
But this is an even more nuanced version of that where everyone else cracks under the weight of dealing with a Superman type character who is just always fucking right. This guy's just always right. And
Right. He's
nobody
a total
can handle
dick
it.
about it.
Right,
you know?
right.
It's the worst part, you know?
Right. And we get that in a lot of, also a lot of good Superman stories. Like, what was that we read not too long ago? Was it it was when we talked about Saga of the Swamp Thing, and Alan Moore had written Superman that way, where it was like he's right, but he's such an asshole, right?
Yeah.
We got that same vibe. So we get that same feel here, where he's just taking that same idea that we've seen a lot of different creators do with Superman, where it can be grating, and applied it to the Utopian here.
It's kind of odd that we're talking about how a Millar story is more nuanced than a Wade one.
Yeah, than Wade.
Very similar, very similar characters.
Yeah, I agree. Millar and nuance and subtlety is a weird new turn to discuss, but it's true.
Oh, I did like the superhero hunter guy. I thought he was cool. Like his interrogation of the one girl, like that was a fantastic fucking scene.
That whole scene was awesome. I did not expect it, and the way you find out right as he tells her, and she finds out at the same moment what he had just done. Awesome. Very brilliant, yeah.
And I also like that he was supposedly back in the day like kind of a B-lister, you know, because nobody. It's like, okay, well he can do that. What the fuck can you do with that?
Right.
And it turns out he's like one of the most powerful motherfuckers there is. And,
right. Yeah. Cool stuff. Just, I think all in all, everything that he does here is interesting in a new way. It's all things. He's doing things with superheroes that I haven't seen. Like almost everything he does in here feels new, or at least done in a refreshing way. Even the direct callbacks to like the different versions of Superboy, like even those feel fresh and a bit new.
Yeah. It even works on like some pop culture stuff, like Obama gets name drop in here, you know, and like the way that his kids are kind of carrying on is very reminiscent of like, you know, celebrities that we have now, like all those shitty early 20s celebrities that just get
Hilton,
fucked up all the time.
Sure.
And, wreck shit. But then it's like, okay, what if these people had superpowers, you know? And I love the scene when they're drunk and they're like carrying that boat through the air, you know, to like save time. And he's like, yeah, this really isn't necessary. If we get there too early, we might not even have a place to stay.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, don't you worry, dude. We fucking got you.
We got you, man. Yeah.
And then they almost fuck it up, you know. It makes you wonder, like, what if fucking Paris Hilton had telekinesis? Like, some serious shit would probably happen.
Right.
You know?
She, you know, if she didn't do anything to earn it, and she just grew up with it, like, look what I can do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's like, at that point, you know, self-destructive tendencies can be far more than self-destructive.
Right. Yeah, they just become destructive.
Right.
Yeah. This might be one of the better superhero things I've read in quite a while. That's actual, like, a Capes book.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, if I met somebody that didn't want to give, like, superhero shit a chance, like, this would probably be one of the first things that I would hand
I think so, too. I think this takes the place of a few other things that I've recommended in the past. There's a specific kind of person that I think this will really, really speak to, and it's more the nuanced kind of reader who is a little disinterested or even taken aback by like a traditional superhero story. Like they're not looking for a superhero story with some subtlety mixed in. They're looking for subtlety with some superhero mixed in, right? Which is what we get here.
So we've been reading Circle for a while. How do you place those now in context with this?
I think this adds a lot of interesting context to it. I don't know if it's necessary. I think they both hold pretty well on their own, too.
Yeah. It kind of makes me want to go back and read some more of that stuff, though, because I remember there was that one scene where one of the superheroes' kids was, like, already fucking plotting his death or something like that. And I can't remember who it was, but if it's the Utopian, like, that's a whole, like, other thing.
And we were talking about how, I wonder if it'll ever go back to that, if we'll ever get the resolution of that. But it may be that that's because this is the resolution of that.
Yeah.
We should look back and check into that. It would be interesting to know.
Yeah, that whole volume of Circle is very slice of life, you know. So, I mean, it could just be instances in people's lives, like, before this that, you know, maybe, like, led them toward that a little bit more.
Right.
But there's also a lot of characters in Circle that we don't see in here.
Right.
Like, the guy that wears all the purple and stuff.
Fox.
Yeah, Fox we don't see. And it really makes me curious on where this current story arc that we're reading is going, because right now we have a lot of like 60s era dissension between, you know, Utopian and everybody else.
Right.
So,
yeah,
it'll be interesting.
And they've mentioned a few times about how they've been through these kind of
Right.
disagreements in the past through different wars, and they've always turned out to agree with him. So I think we'll maybe see a little bit more of that.
I'm thinking maybe some kind of like big train wreck of a situation where Utopian like fucking kills the other dude or something.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
All in all, man, this is a great series. This is one of the best like superhero series we're definitely reading currently, and this is definitely a go back and read. I wonder, anybody out there who's actually read this already, do you have any other recommendations for superhero stories that are kind of like this, or is there anything Millar's doing that maybe predates this that we missed that's in this vein? Because everything I've read by Millar has been pretty like
Goofy, kind of.
goofy or just extreme for the sake of being extreme. So I'd love to know if there's anything we've missed that maybe of his we should give another chance, if anybody knows any of that too.
Definitely.
Do you have anything else to say about this? Any important bits?
It really can't come out fast enough is the thing now. Like,
Right.
I want to come back to this storyline so much. You know, it's like, just
Right.
give me the next fucking 6 issues of Circle and then go back to this and give me a whole trade of that. And,
Do you like this more than Circle?
well, that's hard to say because this is like far more cohesive than Circle so far. I mean, I think they both have their strong points, but I'd say they're very different in the approach that they're written.
Mm-hmm. I do like the vignettes of Circle. I think that it's interesting, and it makes even more sense knowing that this is there. That's more, like you said, it's more put together. It's got more of a long-term arc. So in context now of reading this, I understand Circle a little bit better and why it can be more short vignettes, because it's filling in the information for this. And we already know a lot about these characters, how they end up.
Right.
So we're peppering in, more about each of them with Circle.
Which, again, we were loving Circle, so it's not to say that
Right.
you necessarily, at this point, need to read this, but there's no reason that you shouldn't because it's fucking good.
Yeah, like that's a good point. Like anybody that's reading Jupiter's Circle and liking it, check this out. I think it makes it better.
Yeah.
And it's cheap. Like he said,
$10.
$10, probably like $8 on Amazon, Well, I'm just saying, like, you just order it and it'll just show up at your
He's
house.
fucking high and mighty over here with his Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime.
Fucking pay for shipping for shit.
That's right.
2 days.
That's right. I'm just saying. Like, you don't even have to leave your house. Just
Facebook, Twitter.
get the thing. Just get it.
Facebook, Twitter.
Yeah.
And Tumblr, too.
And all those things. And next week we'll be talking about Sandman.
Yeah. Volume 1.
Which I think in our review we said we were going to do Sandman this week.
Lied.
We lied about that.
Yeah.
That's next week.
Not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah.
Sayonara.
Yeah. Bye.